All right, committee, we are ready to go. Back in session here. We have a budget analysis from Ms. Miller. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Madeline Miller, and today I will be presenting the DLS analysis of the Governor's Office for Children, or GOC. This agency was previously established by an executive order in June 2005. In December 2018, it was moved under the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, now known as the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention and Policy. The agency was reestablished by executive order on January 18th of this year. The fiscal 25 budget includes a proposed general fund deficiency appropriation for fiscal 24 to provide approximately $756,000 in general funds to support 8 positions being transferred to the agency. 4 of those 8 positions come from the renamed GOCPP. Those positions are filled, and the agency reports that it is seeking to fill the remaining 4 positions provided via fiscal 24 deficiency. The executive order moves 2 programs currently budgeted in GOCPP to GOC beginning in fiscal 25. Those are the Children and Youth Division and the Children's Cabinet Interagency Fund. Approximately $25.9 million in operating expenses and grant funding from those 2 programs will transfer in fiscal 25. If those $25.9 million were already budgeted under the agency, the fiscal 25 allowance would grow only by a little over $16 million. Additional growth between fiscal years includes $15 million in general funds that are contingent on the passage of the Engaging Neighborhoods Organizations, Unions, Governments, and Households Act, abbreviated as the ENOUGH Act. In total, the allowance grows by $42.2 million to $42.9 million. On page 3 of the analysis, as shown in Exhibit 1, about 60.7% of the funding is dedicated to funding grants under the Children's Cabinet Interagency Fund. Those elements are shown in shades of blue. The remaining expenses shown in red include the ENOUGH Act grant program and the administrative expenses for the agency. The proposed budget change chart can be found on pages 4 and 5. As I previously mentioned, there's $25.9 million in non-personnel expenses currently within GOCPP that relate to expenses that are budgeted in this agency in fiscal 25. Those expenses grow a little bit to $26.2 million in the allowance. Most of the other growth is related to the ENOUGH grant program. Legislation for this program includes SB 482 and HB 694, which you all heard earlier today. So I'm going to skip over a description of some of those program elements, but say that through this program, GOC would primarily award neighborhood implementation grants to certain applicants, regional implementation grants of up to $500,000 each year for up to 3 years, and planning grants of up to $300,000 for communities that require additional time to build local organizational capacity. The legislation also specifies that the program may include a phased approach to grant awards and tiers of grant awards. As GOC works with its funding recipients, it may be able to receive greater support in reward of performance. Language already in the budget bill makes the $15 million in general funds contingent on the passage of the ENOUGH Act, but DLS recommends amending this contingent language to reflect the bill numbers.
Our judiciary chair is doing us confusion that we're in and he's not. We're equally as confused. Sorry.
The legislation would also create a special non-lapsing fund for grant awards from the program. Though only general funds are made available in the allowance, the agency would be able to use those funds to seed the special fund in fiscal 25 after the creation of the special fund account through legislation. Special funds could only be used for ENOUGH grant awards and not for costs like program administration or the required program evaluation that's a component of the Act. Legislation would take effect July 1st, and the agency reports that it intends to evaluate grant proposals related to the ENOUGH program during the first quarter of fiscal 25 and make awards to recipients as early as the second quarter. While the agency reports that it intends to spend all $15 million during fiscal 25 on grants, the legislation only mandates an additional $15 million in fiscal 26, suggesting that these 2 appropriations are meant in part to seed the special fund account. DLS notes that it would be difficult to establish the program requirements, regulations, and conduct outreach to potential grantees quickly enough to be able to fully award funds in the first year of the program. Given that the agency has just been reestablished and significant time will be needed to develop program requirements and regulations, as well as conduct outreach about the program to potential applicants, DLS recommends reducing the amount provided by 10 million to 5 million. Though the allowance grows for the addition of the enough grant program, costs are level funded between fiscal years for other elements as they move from GOC PP to GOC, such as for local management boards and the local care team coordinator spending. LMBs are expected to receive the same allocation of funds in fiscal 25 as in fiscal 24, as shown in Exhibit 3 on page 7. Funding for the Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund, $3.5 million, is also level funded, though the mandate for this spending ends in the working appropriation. Personnel data for the agency can be found on page 8. In fiscal 25, 4 additional positions are provided. However, the current position classifications do not align with the agency's planned operations, and DLS had requested that the agency discuss plans to reclassify its positions, including the new classifications for the positions. The turnover rate for the office is set to 0 in the allowance. This is an appropriate level for positions within the deficiency, but DLS recommends increasing the turnover expectancy to 25% for the 4 new positions received or transferred positions received in fiscal 25 to account for the time to hire new staff. Key observations for this agency begin on page 9. Though the agency is new, 2 reports written in response to the calendar 2023 Joint Chairman's Report by GOC PP are relevant to GOC's operations in fiscal 25 and moving forward. During the 2023 session, the budget committees were interested in establishing a fund to support comprehensive place-based cradle-to-career programs in neighborhoods that demonstrate the greatest need. Funding for such a grant fund was not provided in the budget. To ensure that a fund would be successful in Maryland, the 2023 JCR included committee narrative requesting that GOC-PYVS, now GOC-PP, submit a report due October 1st. The agency submitted this report to the committees on October 5th. GOCPP contracted with the Children's Funding Project, a nonprofit social impact organization, to respond to the committee narrative. Exhibit 4 on page 10 lists the existing Cradle to Career programs and initiatives targeting aspects of the Cradle to Career continuum that GOCPP identified. In the report, GOCPP also described the existing child and youth data infrastructure available for Maryland. To support the goals identified in the committee narrative, GOCPP recommended making additional resources available to LMBs through the CCIF and realigning funding priorities to more closely follow principles of place-based cradle-to-career models. GOCPP also recommended that LMBs be used as a jurisdiction's hub organization for coordinating, tracking, and reporting on place-based cradle-to-career strategies. GOCPP estimated that a $50 million fund should be established over the course of 5 years. This funding would allow place-based cradle-to-career programs to be piloted in 5 to 10 communities. The reestablished GOC and the proposed Enough grant program will bring additional focus and funding to place-based cradle-to-career programming. The second observation relates to youth out-of-home placements. Budget language in the 2023 JCR also restricted funds within GOCPP pending submission of the 2023 out-of-home placements report. Additional discussion of this report can be found in the budget analysis for GOCPP and DHS, or Department of Human Services, the Social Services Administration. Funding was also withheld from DHS, DJS, and MDH and MSDE. Across all agencies, 6,084 youth experienced at least one out-of-home placement in fiscal 23, compared with 6,334 in fiscal 2022, a 3.9% decrease. Exhibit 5 on page 12 details out-of-home placements per 1,000 youth by jurisdiction. Most had fewer out-of-home placements per 100,000 youth, but that was not the case for Allegheny, Calvert, Caroline, Dorchester, Garrett, Howard, Washington, Wacomico, and Worcester counties. As of the most recently submitted Maryland Children's Cabinet 3-year plan from December 1st of 2022, one of the 6 Children's Cabinet priorities is preventing out-of-state placements. Of the 14,610 placements statewide in fiscal 23, 46.9% kept the youth in the county of origin. 3% of placements were out of state. The percentage of placements where it was unknown if a youth was kept within the home county, out of county, or out of state was 14.7. There was also 36 youth placed in unknown locations. DLS asset GOC comment on why there were youths in unknown destinations in fiscal 23 data. On page 13, Exhibit 6 shows the number of youths in an out-of-state placement in each fiscal year. The population out of state has decreased by 46.1% between fiscal 2020 and 2023, though the decline between fiscal 22 and 2023 was only about 1.4%. DLS finds that the out-of-home placements report is a useful evaluative tool and therefore recommends adding a section to the budget bill restricting funds in each of the data contributing agencies pending the submission of the 2024 out-of-home placements report and in the Governor's Office for Children. A summary of the DLS recommended actions begins on page 15 of the document. Pages 18 and 19 are for appendices, and that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any of your questions at this time.
Okay, thank you as always for the great presentation and analysis. Any questions for our analyst? Okay. Madam Secretary, you started your day with us. You're ending it with us. We appreciate that. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Delegate Barnes, Delegate Chang, and members of the committee. I am Carmel Martin, Special Secretary for the Governor's Office for Children. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today as you review the proposed operating budget for the Governor's Office for Children for fiscal year 2025. I want to thank Ms. Madeline Miller, our DLS analyst, for her thoughtful and thorough analysis. I'm joined today by Mona Vida, Director of the Governor's Financial Administration, and Christina Druschel Williams, Chief of Community Initiatives at the Governor's Office for Children. You have our written testimony before us. You've been very generous with your time earlier today as the Governor and I testified with respect to the Enough Act. So I will be brief. One point from the written testimony that I would like to lift up is the fact that we respectfully disagree with the proposed reduction in funding for the Enough Act in FY 2025, which we understand is based on timing and the office's ability to stand up the program and grantees' ability to deploy funding in the first year. Two key points that I'd like to make with respect to this is first, that we are actively working to develop program requirements and tools to support prospective applicants so that we will be positioned to share these resources with the local communities prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, so we can begin the fiscal year with launching the program with an application. Second, the Governor's allowance for the program in its first year already considers the timing of the enactment and the need for planning and capacity building. So the amount the Governor is requesting takes that into account in terms of the amount that he has requested. Again, we go into more detail on these issues and others, but appreciate how long your day is. So I'll end my presentation there, but we all stand ready to answer any questions that you have.
Secretary, we've had a lot of questions for you already today, so I think we're in good
I
shape.
enjoyed all of it. Thank
Great.
you very much.
All right, well, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
all
you
for
very
being
much.
with us.
I appreciate you.
Committee, do we have some witnesses? All right. Keisha Barber, Liz Park, Mona Veda. These are all from the Governor's Office. Miles, there's still Miles on here. Miles. Yeah, Miles, anything else to add today? Or all right, you're the star of the day, Miles. We're adjourned. Thanks, committee. Good job today.